Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Life After Undergrad podcast. Now, you may be asking, Shanoa, you just posted on the fundamentals. What could you possibly be posting about again this week? Well, I would like to let you know that I attended the very last Wisdom Wednesday session held at the Multicultural Center. And I want to be able to share that insight with you in this bonus episode of the week. As I further reflect and give myself some time to think about the news that I have experienced, I really am not worried, but it just makes me think about the future people, the future students, the future agents of change that are going to enter spaces that don't have a center that I got to not only experience not having, but see open, develop, and really impact the community in a way that is almost indescribable. So I wanted to share with y'all, if y'all did not have an opportunity for me to share the letter that came out February 14th, 2025, in regard to what is really enacting, in particular, multicultural centers and DEI practice being halted. Dear colleague, discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin is illegal and morally reprehensible. Accordingly, I write to clarify and reaffirm the non-discrimination obligation of schools and other entities that receive federal financial assistance from the United States Department of Education. This letter explains and reiterates existing legal requirements under Title and the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution, and other relevant authorities. In recent years, American educational institutions have discriminated against students on the basis of race, including white and Asian students, many of whom come from disadvantaged backgrounds and low-income families. These institutions embrace of pervasive and repugnant race-based preferences and other forms of racial discrimination have emanated throughout every facet of academia. For example, colleges, universities, and K-12 schools have routinely used race as a factor in admissions, financial aid, hiring, training, and other institutional programming. In a shameful echo of a darker period in this country's history, many American schools and universities even encourage segregation by race at graduation ceremonies and in dormitories and other facilities. Educational institutions have toxically indoctrinated students with the false premise that United States is built upon systematic and structural racism and advanced discriminatory policies and practices. Prominence of these discriminatory practices have attempted to further justify them, particularly during the last 4 years under the banner of diversity, equity, and inclusion, smuggling racial stereotypes and explicit race consciousness into everyday training, program, and discipline. But under any banner, discrimination on a basis of race, color, or national origin has been, and will continue to be illegal. The Supreme Court's 2023 decision in Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard, which clarified that the use of racial preferences in college admissions is unlawful, sets forth a framework for evaluating the use of race by state actors and entities covered by Title. The court explained that classifying and assigning students based on their race is lawful only if it satisfies strictly scrutiny, which means that any use of race must be narrowly tailored, that is, necessary to achieve a compelling interest. To date, the Supreme Court has recognized only two interests as compelling in the context of race-based action. One, remediating specific identified instances of past discrimination that violated the Constitution or a statute, and two, avoiding imminent and serious risk to human safety in prisons, such as a race riot. Nebulous concepts like racial balancing and diversity are not compelling interests. As the court explained in SFFA, an individual's race may never be used against him and may not operate as a stereotype in governmental decision-making. Although SFFA addressed admissions decisions, the Supreme Court's holding applies more broadly. At its core, the test is simple. If an educational institution treats a person of one race differently than it treats another person because of that person's race, the educational institution violates the law. Federal law thus prohibits covered entities from using race in decisions pertaining to admissions, hiring, promotion, compensation, financial aid, scholarships, prizes, administrative support, discipline, housing, graduation ceremonies, and all other aspects of student, academic, and campus life. Put simply, educational institutions may neither separate or segregate students based on race nor distribute benefits or burden based on race. Although some programs may appear neutral on their face, a closer look reveals that they are, in fact, motivated by racial considerations and race-based decision-making. No matter the form, remains impermissible. For example, a school may not use students' personal essays, writing samples, participation in extracurricular activities, or other cues as a means of determining or predicting a student's race and favoring or disfavoring such student. Relying on non-racial information as a proxy for race and making decisions based on that information violates the law. That is true whether the proxies are used to grant preferences on an individual basis or a systematic one. It would, for instance, be unlawful for an educational institution to eliminate standardized testing to achieve a desired racial balance or to increase racial diversity. Other programs discriminate in less direct but equally insidious ways. DEI programs, for example, frequently preference certain racial groups and teach students that certain racial groups bear unique moral burdens that others do not. Such programs stigmatize students who belong to particular racial groups based on cruel racial stereotypes. Consequently, they deny students the ability to participate fully in the life of a school. The department will no longer tolerate the overt and covert racial discrimination that has become widespread in this nation's educational institutions. The law is clear. Treating students differently on the basis of race to achieve nebulous goals such as diversity, racial balancing, social justice, or equity is illegal under controlling Supreme Court precedent. All students are entitled to a school environment free of discrimination. The department is committed to ensuring those principles are a reality. This letter provides notice of the department's existing interpretation of federal law. Additional legal guidance will follow in due course. The department will vigorously enforce the law on equal terms as to all preschool, elementary, secondary, and post-secondary educational institutions, as well as state educational agencies that receive financial assistance. The department intends to take appropriate measures to assess compliance with the applicable statutes and regulations based on the understanding bodies in this letter beginning no later than 14 days from today's date, which was February 13th to note, including anti-discrimination requirements that are a condition of receiving federal funding. All educational institutions are advised to 1. Ensure that their policies and actions comply with existing civil rights law. 2. Cease all efforts to circumvent prohibitions on the use of race by relying on proxies or other indirect means to accomplish such ends. And 3. cease all reliance on third-party contractors, clearinghouses, or aggregators that are being used by institutions in an effort to circumvent prohibited use of race. Institutions that fail to comply with this federal civil rights law may consist with applicable law face potential loss of federal funding. Anyone who believes that a covered entity has unlawfully discriminated may file a complaint with OCR. Information about filing a complaint with OCR, including a link to the online compliant form, is available linked. Thank you in advance for the commitment to providing our nation's students with an educational environment that is free of race, color, or national origin discrimination. Sincerely, Craig Traynor, Acting Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, United States Department of Education. That was the 4-page letter from the Acting Assistant Secretary. So you may be asking, this letter, that was just a lot of information thrown at me, Shanoa, like what is occurring? What is happening? What is going on? Well, the reason the Multicultural Center at Sacred Heart and other multicultural centers across the country are being closed down, in addition to any DEIB-based programs, is because of this letter. This letter directly states that these institutions use funding from the federal government if they do not abide by what's in this letter. It's disregarding the experience of Black and brown and marginalized individuals or marginalized communities, because the playing field isn't even. The playing field isn't level. So when you take these aspects of identity out of a person's ability to share who they are and see if they fit within an institution in itself, it takes away not only a part of them, but it also takes away that level of seeing where they are. So I think this is something that we really need to band together with and realize that there is an impact and we need to do something. We need to band together. This isn't just the Sacred Heart University's multicultural center that's getting thrown away. This is everybody's. When I entered Sacred Heart University, there wasn't a multicultural center. It opened up in 2020. I entered in 2019, and then the pandemic hit that spring semester of my freshman year. And that's when the center opened. When I tell you, I lived on a dorm on campus that was so far away from the actual population freshmen. I didn't see anybody that looked like me at all. Multicultural Center brought me into a space where there was people that looked like me. There was role models. There was people that gained success or positioned themselves in a way that I wanted to as well. And being able to be mentored and supported in a way, and also by someone who understands the identities you hold and what comes with them, is something that throughout my experience, yes, I had so many great instructors and so many great educators that I mentioned in my last podcast episode, but it makes you realize that this loss is a huge loss, and it's not just for the people who experience the multicultural center and its impact, but also the people who won't even get to experience it or didn't get to fully feel its capacity over the past 5 years. I was the first social work intern at the center, and I'm getting emotional because I'm just realizing that I watched the center grow from day one, and being a part of all the boards I could while I was a student there, and really give my time to a space that I knew had such great energy and such great impact. I literally, I told my brother to go there because it was a space that I knew would support him through his journey. And now that I know that it's not going to be there, it makes me so sad. And even thinking about my other siblings, of course, we don't know if it'll ever come back. Just being hopeful that in this journey, we can still as a community stick together no matter the adversity within it. So not only did I get to hear that news and process this letter fully and really process the experience of that and begin my grieving process of the Multicultural Center, it also made me realize that there's so many people out there who probably have similar feelings about it. So I wanted to share that and really use my platform in a sense to, again, bring us together at this time. Because, again, I didn't even realize going into college and being in high school, we didn't have any Puerto Rican club or Hispanic club or multicultural council. So going into Sacred Heart through these organizations, I got to learn so much, not only about my own culture and the identities I hold, but other people's identities and experiences. So many different fields that this space helped grow people into just be empathetic professionals and understanding professionals. It's sad to see it go for sure. It's been a part of my life for so long that it's insane to think that I won't be able to just drive on campus and walk into the Multicultural Center and see Robert Johnson there and going to the Wisdom Wednesdays and remembering or reminiscing on being the first social work intern when there wasn't that many people on staff and there wasn't an office of inclusive excellence. But I really am so deeply saddened because this is something like the Multicultural Center is a space I thought I would be working at in a couple years, and being able to impact students the way I was in that role. And now that this is something again in the next couple years, it's already starting to be not celebrated and not accepted, let alone what anything's going to look like next year at this time. I think we just have to realize as students, as a community, as marginalized people, as allies, we need to stay informed. We need to connect with each other. We need to, again, support each other because we are what we have. And if we stand together and we have those numbers, we can really make an impact. So, as this is in effect, I would love to use my platform again as a resource for you all to stay informed and not only gain insight on how to progress through your journey and be a successful individual amongst it, but also stay informed on these aspects of how our future is being impacted. It's important as a social worker to advocate for marginalized communities and for this injustice going on because it's within our code of ethics. So at the end of the day, this dear colleague letter being sent out is a defined injustice that us as social workers need to hold the government accountable for at this time. So, again, as we come together, I hope and I love seeing the support and the voices that are already being shared on TikTok and really informing people. And I really appreciate you out there that are doing that for the community because, again, as we come together, as we share a message of what's going on and what we can even do or the solutions possible, that'll really build a sense of community where this is not going to be tolerated.